This category is kind of a mashup of mine between two different categories. The point-and-click adventure and the puzzle adventure game, if you will. I combine these two because they play on the same feelings for me. On the one hand, you have the entire LucasArts franchise, which sadly they closed last year. I guess one of the first games I remember playing from the LucasArts is Day of the Tentacle. Day of the Tentacle was this hilarious cartoon, animated, and well-voiced. The characters were hilarious, the puzzles were phenomenal, and the story was just what brought it all together. I keep stopping when I'm recording these to actually just daydream about playing these games. They're so core to what I am, who I am. I could list off every single action-adventure game that I have, and it would take all day, but some of the most notable ones are Full Throttle, Day of the Tentacle, Sam & Max Hit the Road, all the Telltale games. I mean, I'll put links to a lot of these in the description, but I'd recommend you check them out. They're very fun to play. The thing about adventure games, especially point-and-click adventure games, is that they focus a lot more on the story than they do the gameplay itself. There's very little actual gameplay. The gameplay is in the description. You point, you click. You point, you click. It's more in the interactive immersion of the story, or kind of like watching a choose-your-own-adventure, if you will. However, in recent years, developers and designers alike have kind of taken this to a whole new level with the puzzler action-adventure kind of game. I think one of the greatest achievements and one of the greatest examples of a story that is so immersive but still has actual gameplay elements would be Portal. Portal is probably my favorite game of all time. It's hilarious. It draws you in. It's mind-bogglingly difficult at times and very rewarding. And I highly think that if you haven't played Portal, you definitely should pick it up in some form. I'm reminded actually that you probably don't play video games. I don't think I've ever seen you play a video game. I know that you had a computer back in the day, and I know that you played a few, maybe here and there, but for the most part, gaming was a thing that I did on my own, and some of my friends kind of joined in sometimes, but it was more my thing. That was really very interesting to me growing up. Being that kid that always wanted to stay home instead of going clubbing because he had an online meeting to play a warfighting game with a bunch of people from all around the world. It kind of leads us to our next category of games, MMORPGs! MMORPGs, or MMOs in general. MMO standing for Massive Multiplayer Online Games, MMOGs. So MMOs in general are games that are drawn out over months of gameplay to drive a social aspect. One of the first MMORPGs was Ultima Online. In Ultima, what you did is you created a character, you ran out in the world, you killed a bunch of mobs, ran back to the city, which was actually player created, sold all your stuff, and did it all again with a bunch of other people. This started a whole new trend as well as a whole new business plan for certain types of video games. I'm sure you've probably heard of World of Warcraft. If you haven't, good for you. Basically, with World of Warcraft, they took all the elements that previous games had made, specifically EverQuest and Ultima Online and Ragnarok Online, and combined them, simplified them, made them more accessible, and reshipped it in this brand new form, and it exploded. We're not talking Game of the Year, we're talking about broke sales records for all time, and continued to do so over the course of the next 5 years. Needless to say, I've spent many hours in World of Warcraft. MMOs are here to stay, because man, do we have a lot to talk about. And in the second part, we'll definitely talk more about Your Punishment. And I will see you later this week.